So for example, your character has some kind of beginning state, they grow, change, etc. We call that an arc, and then they have some kind of end state. And then fully developed. All right, welcome all. Today's topic is what is a great story? The point of the lesson is to think about definitions. Now, why definitions? Definitions frame your understanding of any subject. So if you have a good definition, it's going to help you. And if you have a bad definition, or if you never think about a definition, you're going to suffer. So the analogy I want to propose is car mechanic. Now, I know cars are getting better, electric, etc., and people don't work on them nearly as much as they used to. So try to think back a little bit into those hazy days where people were driving around in Model Ts or some kind of broken Chevrolet, and that'll make more sense. So a simple model of a car is you put gas in and it goes. Make sense? So if the car breaks, what is the remedy? You put in more gas. And that works to a certain extent. A car without gas won't move. But on the other hand, it only works up to a point. If you put in too much gas and the car is broken in some other way, it's not going to help you. And if you extend that analogy, a very sophisticated, experienced auto mechanic is going to be able to diagnose problems with the car in any number of ways. They may ask you what kind of sound it's making. If it makes a beep or a gurr or a grind or a screech, they'll ask you to repeat it. And then that symptom is going to give them insight into what the problem is, and it's going to help you fix it, or at least help them fix it. And I want you to think about stories in the same way. So I thought we'd start off with some bad definitions. So these are things that I've either read or seen that I think do not help you that much when it comes to stories. I'm not going to talk in particular about who promoted these definitions because I don't want to make any enemies, first of all. And second of all, because that's just mean, right? There's no point to it. I want to just talk a little bit about their shortcomings and then propose a definition that I think is going to serve us better going forward. So the first one is a story is a procession of meaningful events. Okay, that is true, right? A story is a procession of meaningful events, and yet it's also not complete. You can see this definition focuses mainly on plot. So, to the extent a story is only about plot, it works. To the extent it's about more than plot, not so much. And then this one is also plot focused, a beginning, middle, and end. And I think what the author was trying to do here was sort of talk about a narrative arc. The issue is that they put a narrative arc above everything else on the one hand, and then at the same time refuse to acknowledge there is anything else going on. So we want our definition to be more expansive. And then the last one, a story is about a character, and here's the quote, facing an obstacle and changing. Again, the idea is to draw your attention or draw the would-be successful author's attention to a very particular part of storytelling, which is okay, but then it also carries with it this notion that this is all there is to storytelling, right? Coming up with a character and an obstacle and developing a plot around that. And what I will suggest to you is it's too narrow a frame. It's not sufficient to serve your purpose, which is to craft a compelling novel. Make sense? Nods, shakes? Okay, good. So let's review for a second. A good definition captures the entire phenomenon, right? There are no missing parts. So a good definition of story has to contain all the elements that you think, or anyone thinks, is going to make for a satisfying story. And I say satisfying because that's the second part, right? Usually definitions have an implicit functionality, a goal, if you will. And in this case, story, it's to produce a great story. Now, for a car, you usually think about it, and the definition is to transport someone, right? But the functional aspect of that is your model of a car points you to what's not working if it's not fulfilling that function. So to extend that analogy, I don't know if you recall this, but if you do a Google search for Chilton, Chilton, manuals, right, they fully describe a particular car. Every single part is listed. There's diagrams showing how all the parts fit together. So in theory, you could take any model of car, right? These guides were model specific, and you could disassemble them completely, order whatever new parts you needed, and then put the car back together again. And a good mechanic would go even beyond that, right? They would have memorized the Chilton manuals for the car they specialized in. And by having this frame, this understanding of how a car worked, they were going to become an expert mechanic. And that's our goal here. By having that understanding of story in mind, it's going to advance your craft of writing. And then the last test of a definition is whether it's useful or not. Now, the point I was trying to make earlier is that those three definitions may have been useful, but because they didn't present the complete picture, they probably weren't going to be definitive. So our goal is to come up with a definitive definition that ties to what a story is supposed to do, in this case, all cases, satisfy readers, and then have enough connective tissue that it's going to be useful to help you write better and diagnose problems. So here it is. This is the Bardsy definition of story. You can read it. You can tattoo it on your arm if you're super enthusiastic. We'll put it up on our website. It's in every one of our blogs. It's deceptively simple, right? A story is a coherent combination of 5 elements: character, world, plot, conflict, and theme. So a lot of this is familiar. Character, world, plot, great, standard story. A lot of right craft authors will say that. Put these 3 elements together, you're done. We add conflict and theme for reasons that are covered in other videos and workshops. What I want to focus on is the consequences of this definition, what you should take away from it. First of all, this definition of a story requires that you fully realize all 5 elements. Because it's a combination, if one of them is missing, you don't have a story. Now, usually they're there implicitly, but our goal here is to raise your awareness so that all 5 elements in your story are fully developed. So for example, your character has some kind of beginning state, they grow, change, etc. We call that an arc, and then they have some kind of end state. And then fully developed also includes the stuff we talked about in the Publishable Characters Guide, right? They have to have an identity that people can relate to as if they were a real human being. And you have to run through each of the 5 elements as you're writing and make sure that the elements are all there, etc. Then there is this thing that is the epitome of our Bardsy approach, which is coherence. Coherence, which we'll talk about again later, means that not only are the 5 elements fully developed in themselves, but they also work together throughout your novel. And by throughout your novel, we mean it has a beginning, middle, and end, or more technically, it has an inciting incident, a peak, and a resolution. And then the functional aspect is that we prove, we know, we have evidence that, I don't know how you want to say this, but a coherent story, right, that combines all these 5 elements successfully leads to reader satisfaction. And reader satisfaction is the sine qua non, right? Satisfied readers buy books, dissatisfied readers don't. And that gives rise to our entire suite of tools, exercises, practices, workshop, courses, contests, is all based on this single definition. And then finally, just a teaser for next time. A novel is what? A story written in about 100,000 words. So 2 immediate consequences. First, novels contain stories, right? They are not stories in and of themselves. If you followed our MCS exercise, our minimum complete story exercise, you know that the story is separable from the novel. So a novel contains a story. More accurately, it transmits a story in words, and it's about 100,000 words, and that's somewhat arbitrary. All right. Short and sweet. Does anyone have any questions? You can type them into the chat box if you want. If not, I will bid you adieu and look forward to talking more. Thank you.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity. Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback. And our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.